It is week number 2 of the quarantine over here in the Netherlands, and what better way than to start off the week than by casting a little bit of StarCraft. Now, a couple of days ago, I casted a game on one of the new maps that got introduced with the new ladder season very recently. That one is called Golden Wall LE. In case you haven't seen that epic match, I'll go ahead and post a link to it down below in the description of this one. Because today, we find ourselves on the second crazy map that has recently been added. Now, you may have already noticed that between the main bases, there's some weird things on the minimap. I'll go over that in just a little bit, but spawning here, and I guess the left-hand side of the map in a way? I mean, if we tilt the map this way, it would be the left-hand side. Playing with the blue Protoss probes from South Korea, we have one of the strongest Protoss players in the world, and he goes by the name of Stats. His opponent, I guess, what do we call this side? I guess this would be like the 12 o'clock position, and this would be like the 3 o'clock position-ish? The 2:30-ish position? I'm not entirely sure. Let me know down below what you would like me to call this. But playing with the red Zerg drones, we have the current World Champion of StarCraft 2, and of course his name is Dark. Alrighty, so this map, it's a little bit crazy, but honestly, it's playing out more normally than I really expected. So, the craziest feature of this map that's immediately apparent are these, like, inhibitor zone generators. We've seen those in the past on a couple of other maps, just out in the open, those big slowing bubbles. This time around, however, they are basically just slowing down air units. What it usually means is that while the players are relatively close in air, right? They're pretty close in like air-to-air distance. Units do still take quite a time before they actually arrive on the other side of the map. But at least in my experiences, it's really not that significant. The most important part about those slowing zones is this base over here in the top right-hand corner. So this is an island base. I've played about 24 games on this map so far, I would say. And I have not seen a single person take this island base. But obviously, maybe that's gonna come into play in this match as well. Generally speaking though, in Terran versus Zerg, I would expect the Terran players to try and head on over to that island expansion. And likewise in Terran versus Protoss, Terran can definitely expand there. But usually both Protoss and Zerg, they don't really like taking the islands because, well, their buildings can't fly, right? You'd have to send either like an overlord with like a drone in it, or maybe like a Nidus worm and send a drone over there. But it's always a little bit awkward for Zerg. And likewise for Protoss, I guess it's a little bit easier. You can probably load in a single probe in a prism relatively easily and then like send it over there. But it still creates some awkward moments because Zerg obviously should always have an overlord over there. So this should always go up with the Zerg immediately being aware of it. And while it might create some interesting counterplay if it goes unscouted, I think in general, we shouldn't really expect this island expansion to come up all too often. Now, when I first looked at the maps, when they announced the new map pool, I really thought that this like section of the map, this like top right-hand section of the map would be the most interesting part. But it turns out it really isn't. I would say this section right over here is far more interesting. So this like weird base layout where the natural is right over here and then the third base is in like the corner. You can always actually take the third base right here in the front too if you, for example, want to play a little bit more aggressively. So Terran players oftentimes like to try and take this as their third. It creates a really interesting dynamic, right? Because say, for example, the Protoss player in this case, and by the way, it's going to be an adept opener, so we'll pay attention to that in just a little bit. But say Protoss wants to expand over here, they can always fall back towards this high ground, and without the rocks destroyed, the opponent really can't move up there because splash damage just absolutely shuts it down. So there's some very interesting base layouts, which I actually have found to be far more fascinating than this like whole top right-hand section. Anyways, first two adepts have made their way across the map. Now this is Dark. He's seen everything. I think the adepts might commit. Nah, they decide to cancel. He's seen everything. He knows exactly what to expect here. He knows that there are indeed a couple of gateways right here at the front. And he should also be okay against this prism follow-up. So look at this, right? Overlords can still poke in relatively easily. So most of the time, it doesn't seem like you really need your Overlord speed upgrade. Dark has clicked on those two structures right over here. He knows that it's gateways, and he knows right now that something is researching inside of that Twilight Council. And at least with the recent developments and already those couple of adepts spotted and them playing very carefully, I would say it's definitely not charged, definitely not going to be blink. So it will be those glaive updates or upgrades right there for those adepts. We'll have to see here if he can do a little bit of damage with it. By the way, after the third base is taken over here in the corner, Zerg can quite easily expand towards this massive bottom section. And then all the way in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a golden base as well with 6 mineral patches. So it's a very interesting map layout. And I thought I was going to really dislike it. But so far, I gotta say, I'm really enjoying it. It's been an absolute blast playing on this, as it creates some very cool games. Now, Dark knows exactly where that prism is at. He's got an overlord right over here, so he knows exactly where those adepts are located. And honestly, I don't really see this dealing too much damage. Yeah. I mean, Dark is too good for this, man. This was a build that was popular at IEM Katowice just a couple of weeks ago. And it was a build that a couple of Protoss players used to take down the best Zerg players in the world. Well, with the exception of Rogue, of course, who ended up winning that whole event. But there's no denying that Zerg players have been practicing against this build order a lot over the last couple of days, over the last few weeks, and it's very obvious that they've gotten much more comfortable dealing with this kind of style. So notice right here, right? This is what kind of fascinates me. With this. One of the things that's really difficult to scout with this kind of setup as Zerg is whether or not it's a Dark Templar opener. So you see 4 gateways, you see the Robo, you see the Twilight Council. Really the only giveaway that you get as Zerg at this point is the gas count, but that's pretty difficult to scout as well on most maps. The gas is in the natural, and the fact that something is researching in the Twilight Council. I think the next step in this build order situation is probably going to be Protoss players faking an upgrade inside of that Twilight Council and then still going Dark Templar. Because Dark definitely did not have any detection here until like just now, right? He doesn't have any Spore Crawlers set up. He wouldn't have had any Overseers either. So I think that's probably going to be the next development. But so far, in this early game, it's been a pretty passive approach. Question is, can Zerg get the kill on this base? That would be huge. There's plenty of force fields though. I don't see it happening. And Stats indeed is going to force these Zerglings away. Now Stats is always known as the Shield of Aiur, right? That's his nickname. He's very well known for playing incredibly well when it comes to that defensive style. So I'm not surprised that he decides to take the backwards expansion. He might take the 4th over here, but he could always take that over here, obviously, as well. Would make it a little bit easier to maneuver in between the bases. But this whole section right over here, like this like layout, I don't think we've ever seen that before in a map in StarCraft 2. At the very least, not in recent years. So we'll see. We'll see if it's going to come into play in this specific match as well. All right, a lot of roaches coming up. We see roach speed finishing here in just a little bit as well. Dark is going to be able to max out very quickly here. Is he going to go for a push off of this? I don't see a Baling Nest anywhere or anything along those lines. Stats is actually scouting right now as well. He wants to know if maybe there's like a Spire or a Nidus Worm or a really quick Hive coming up. None of that is happening though. He does see exactly where those roaches are located, so he should be okay. Pushing on this map is so hard though. Like this choke point over here is really tight. This choke point is actually pretty tight as well. And then this one right over here, I mean, that one is pretty much impossible to move up to if you, or move up in rather, if you're a Zerg player here. Look at the amount of force fields as well. Stats. There's no way Stats is really going to take damage here. I don't see it happening. Well, maybe I'm wrong. A couple of Adepts in the meantime are inside of that main base. Not a lot of workers have gone down though, despite this being an Adept opener. Now, I love this. Those shades, absolutely brilliant. A lot of units though are setting up right here on the left-hand side as well. Stats moves down the ramp, manages to grab a couple of those roaches, but at the same time, yeah, this is going to hurt a lot more. He may actually end up losing the 3rd base here. Just because Zerg decided to split up their units. They can do that? Absolutely amazing. Good defense so far though, despite this being a bit of an awkward scenario. It looks like Stats should be able to stabilize here on both sides. Now, reinforcing Zerglings are coming up. Blink Stalker here are absolutely massive. Can he pull off some nice juggling? Should be able to. There it is. Stats, of course. No stranger to microing his units very well. And despite that fight looking absolutely amazing there for Zerg, yeah. This is, like, best case scenario, I guess, that you're gonna get. I really feel like this shouldn't have happened in the first place, right? Like, those units should have just been halted right over here. So a couple of workers go down on both sides, but all things considered, this is gonna definitely be an advantage right now for Protoss, I would say, just because he managed to hold on against that big Zerg all-in. And in a way, that wasn't all-in because Zerg didn't get any additional tech. Upgrades are late. We don't really see much of a follow-up here either. Apparently, the way that Dark wants to follow this up is with the Tunnel and Claws upgrade and then the Burrow upgrade. So I guess he wants to maybe try and see if he can get those roaches underneath the force fields. Maybe that's a cool all-in that might be possible, but I've got a feeling that this push from Stats will happen before all of those upgrades finish up. And this is still a pretty scary Protoss army. A couple of Adepts actually move in over here as well. Nicely done. Obviously picks up the majority of them as well. 5 Immortals in total right now. 5 Immortals is nothing to you know, be underestimating if you're the Zerg here. 5 Immortals gun down all of your roaches really quickly if you're not paying attention. Now, I don't know if Stats really wants to attack, though. I mean, he's known, like I said, right, to be called the Shield of Aiur, and for very good reason. He, generally speaking, loves playing this passive style. He actually doesn't have charge. Wait, where's your charge, buddy? Huh. So he decided to go Glaive upgrade first, then Blink, and no charge yet. It's a little bit awkward. I think he needs to start that up here in just a little bit. Like, he really needed to start it up like 10 minutes ago, actually. Well, not 10 minutes ago, maybe 3 minutes ago. This prison, by the way, is an absolute nuisance. Like, it's been dropping, like, these adepts all over the place. And I guess that's the way that Zerg players are gonna have to, you know, deal with prisons right now. No more Archon drops, no more Dark Templar. Those are pretty uncommon. Oh my god, there's just Detection Dark. That's almost a little bit disrespectful in a way, right? I always kind of feel like Tunnel of Claws is a little disrespectful. Just because it requires your opponent to just not have detection at the right point. Which really shouldn't happen at this level of play. I mean, obviously, you know, it can happen, but it really shouldn't. Roach is right now making their way over towards the third base, but there's a photon cannon over there too. I've got a feeling that this will be dealt with just fine as well. So, early game right here, relatively passive, right? Relatively passive. Nothing has really happened just yet. Well, I guess a lot has happened, but no one's really ahead yet. That's what I'm trying to say. Dark really wants to see, like, he really is looking like he wants to drive this home, which is Roach Ravager Ling. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it happening. Especially with the splash damage coming up right now for Stats, right? He's getting himself charge. He's getting himself a very, very formidable army. Now, with this heavy focus on Immortals, there's not that much anti-air, right? There's a couple of Stalkers, which is great, but obviously the Spire can definitely deal some damage. Now, this is huge, though. Those force fields are really, really nice. Slices off part of that army, and at the same time, he's also holding on to the engagement at the third base. I've got a feeling that Stats is absolutely smashing this so far. Beautiful work. Zerg is still maxed out, and I know some of you are looking at that supply count. It's like, Lowko, how can you say that? The thing is, this Zerg army is not getting any better, and this Protoss army is getting ridiculous. He will be able to max out here within a couple of minutes, and his army is going to be so much more powerful than that of Zerg. He's still just rallying in tons of Zerglings right now. Now look at the gas, actually. Oh my god, I wasn't paying attention to that. While this is all going on, Dark is just spending his minerals. He's not spending any of his gas here, which means that he's probably planning on making a massive Mutalisk switch. Muta's obviously amazing. There's Archons out right now as well, though. Archons are phenomenal when it comes to anti-air. Roach Ravager Ling moving in right now. Spire is done. What are you going to do, Dark? There it is. 20 Mutas are coming up. Fourth base, in the meantime, has been acquired here by the shield. Stats. Yeah, he's actually going after the Archons right now. I love that. Picking off the anti-air. Those Mutas, man. Those Mutas are the ones to watch out for right now, because Stats is probably assuming that this is going to be just like a transition towards, say, like Swarm Host or Nidus or something like that. He's really not anticipating this many Mutas to come out. That's 32 Mutas here in just a little bit. Greedy play right here by a greedy boy. Dark loves playing this style. I gotta say, I like it a lot, but whenever I give it a try, it never works. Like, Mutas are such an awkward unit. They're phenomenal at base racing, right? They're really good at shutting down structures, but they suck at fighting. Although, when you get this many of them, I mean, I guess they can start taking engagements as well. Immediately picks off one of those pylons, goes after a few probes, shuts down that photon cannon. This immediately triggers a response as well from Stats, who apparently wants to move across the map, it looks like. Stalkers were left at home. At the same time, the Roaches and Ravagers push forward, but that's part of the Protoss army still over at the third base. This army right over here, actually, of Stats can shut down buildings really quickly as well. The Mutas, man, they're going to town everywhere. He's playing exceptionally greedy right now. He's like those people in grocery stores right now that are hoarding all of the toilet paper. What do you mean I can only get 3 packs? I'm gonna grab the entire shelf. Quickly heads on over to the natural to grab the entire row of hand sanitizer as well, not allowing anyone else to get any of them. Oh, okay, he's heading on over to the fourth base right now too. I guess that's a frozen owl. Grabs himself all of the frozen fish, all of the frozen chicken breast. Dark is a greedy boy, but he's gonna be met right now with a bunch of Archons. Those Archons do not mess around. Archons can definitely win this fight, right? Archons deal splash damage in a very small area. Comes down to the good micro there from Dark in order to defend that. This is actually now turning into a crazy base race, though. Greedy boy Dark. Trying to get maximum value out of Mutas. Now look at the amount of Mutas still available. Good Storm. Good Storm again. Oh my god, those Storms blanketing all of those Mutalisk. The question is there not just simply too much? These mutas heal up ridiculously quickly out of combat, and there it is. Zerg manages to clean up what was a big counterattack there of the Protoss. Now he's target firing down the Nexus, or the hatchery rather. It's not gonna happen. The Immortals over here fall, but Immortals at this point not that scary anymore. Now remember those units that were previously over at the third base? They are still hanging out. Now, while this is all going on, right? Protoss, yeah, he's actually still got quite a bit. He has a lot of mining still. Or at least when it comes to like the Nexus count. He's got 30 workers. That's really not too amazing. I guess I'm gonna have to retract my previous statement. These mutas though, they're once again looking for the counterattack. Fourth base falls. Base in the bottom left-hand corner has been taken by Darky. This is completely unscouted right now. He's also got a base right up above from that. So I guess he's just going full on into the base race. This is something that Stats doesn't know about at this point, right? And that's the scary part. If you base race a Zerg, they may just take every single expansion that they can get their hands on, because it's so easy for Zerg to just simply grab all of those bases and run the drones all over the place. Zerg has so much vision because of that creep, whereas Protoss is relatively blind. So Zerglings are going to be able to pick off most of the structures over at the fourth base. Mutas, in the meantime, have cleaned up most of the natural and now the main base too. Stats is going what seems to be in the direction of the main. He finds the Spire, shuts it down. That's fine, but like, what exactly are you gonna do about the bases in the bottom left? He has found out about it, by the way. Looks like two of these Immortal boys now picked off that hatchery. I completely missed that one. They have a ridiculous amount of kills, 20 and 17. Zerglings now, though, have run over in this direction. Great micro, actually, there by Stats. These Immortals are getting a lot of value, even against the Zerglings, but I think that this hatchery right now is going to be the one to snipe. And how exactly are you gonna get over there? Well, apparently, one step in that plan is to use the recall to go back towards the third base. Mutas were still flying around there. This hatchery will not live to tell the tale. This is actually getting really sick. Stalkers are trying to go after as many of these structures as they can. Keep in mind, the actual win condition of StarCraft 2 is killing all of your opponent's structures. So what they're trying to achieve right now is both of them are trying to kill all of the structures of the opponent. Zerglings, though, so strong in these kinds of scenarios, right? The Zerg army is just so mobile. Like, Protoss is so slow in comparison. Right now, I mean, yeah, that base got shut down, but the bottom left-hand corner has been retaken. Dark is flying around those mutas, and he's now going after the probes. Now, you blink twice, and that entire mineral line will be gone. Only 3 probes remain at this point, and Dark is sitting nice and pretty at almost, well, a little bit more, actually, than double the supply here of the Protoss. Double Stargate coming up. So I guess what Stats wants to do is get Muta, or, oh, I know, he wants to make Phoenixes, yeah, to counter those Mutalisks, but is that really a good idea? All of his gateways are unpowered. I guess he knows that he's not going to get those back up. I kind of feel like Dark can actually just, like, magic box down those 2 Archons, spread out his Mutalisk. It's a little micro trick that Zerg players can do to keep their flying units spread out, basically negating a lot of that splash damage. Still, though, that's 5 Archons and a bunch of Stalkers and Phoenixes, too. Keep in mind that this is really, like, the only army that Dark has, although he's mining bottom left and he's mining this base right over here as well, which was his 4th base previously. After it got killed once, I guess it's no longer the 4th base, but you get what I'm trying to say. Queens are being made as well. I think I favor the Zerg player quite a bit here, right? It's gonna take a little while for him to shut down this Protoss because he can't really engage this many Archons. I guess Stats can, like, try and reproduce some workers if he really wants to. Oh, gotta be careful, Dark. If you fly over those Archons and you don't pay attention for 1 second, that entire Muta clump is gone, and that would be game over immediately. Alright, apparently Stats is feeling brave. He knows where those Mutas are located, so apparently he's trying to somewhat chase them down. He does have an observer, so he's seen this hatch over here coming back up. He doesn't know about the base in the bottom right-hand corner. Phoenixes, though, can technically micro against these Mutas. Phoenixes do outrange Mutas, and with good micro, yeah... Oh, look at this. You can get a ridiculous amount of value out of those couple of flying boys. In the meantime, the Archons and Stalkers have made their way towards the bottom left-hand corner. Burrow now being utilized by Dark. Still, though, the Mutas now have pinned back the Protoss player. Those flying units tried to get around. Probes have decided to run. He doesn't have any detection over here. He does have that observer in that location, but probably too busy microing those couple of... No, you can't lift those, buddy. You can't lift those Zerglings. He was busy microing those couple of Phoenixes. In the meantime, though, I mean, Zerg, once again, is moving over towards the bottom left-hand corner. But Protoss is getting some value here. These are the last final structures of Protoss. There's only a few of them. If you go right here to the structures tab, you can keep track of how many of those structures remain, because I think we will see one player going down to 0 here very quickly. Still though, Zerg cannot engage this army. A couple of probes apparently were pulled off the mineral line as well to fight a hatchery. But Protoss can chase down these mutas on paper indefinitely. If you micro perfectly with 0 ping, I guess it's possible. Right now, though, the Zerg player does have the revelation message right here on the screen. So he knows exactly where those final structures are located. He knows that these structures over here in the main base are going to be the final ones here in just a little bit, as well as this assimilator in the natural. This hatchery falls, though. Ooh, Stat's gonna apparently send a couple of those units over here. He's also gonna now, in the meantime, send those few Archons back home. He really needs to try and hold on to those final structures. Looks like the assimilator and the natural will fall very quickly. He's running, though. He needs to, right? The mutas, in the meantime, though, are going after those final units that were split off as well. And I think that Dark has done it. In a ridiculous base race, he's going to be able to send those units back home right now. As long as he can snipe these final 2 structures, that's game over. The units, though, have made their way home. The Archons can actually hold on to this position for quite a while. Ooh, is he gonna just simply engage it? No, he's just gonna right-click. He's just gonna right-click right here on top of that final warp gate. If he gets it, that's game over. GG is called. And Stats loses his final structure. And with that, Dark obtains the victory. I gotta say, guys, do you think this game would have happened on a regular, quote-unquote, standard macro map? It's possible. It's certainly not out of the ordinary. But I gotta say, maps like this, like Purity and Industry, like Golden Wall, like Zen, those few maps that have now been added to the map pool, they create epic games. They create some really, really cool matches that are definitely worth watching. In general, it seems like the crazier games happen on those maps, and while I was initially a little bit hesitant of them being added to the map pool, because I mean, 3 out of the 7 maps right now is what I would probably label as crazy. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, the standard macro maps obviously always progress the same way, and most of the time those are the maps that I prefer, you know, playing on. But when it comes to casting and when it comes to, like, watching pro games, the crazy maps are really the ones to look out for. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you once again in the next one.